The North Star should be like emptying the sea with a spoon. That's a pretty impossible task, isn't it?
I've lost everything twice. I'm 37 years old, right? I've had the highs and the lows. I've been in over £300,000 worth of personal debt as well.
My guest today is Will Polston, a business strategist, performance coach, a TEDx speaker, and a best-selling author of North Star Thinking.
One day I went to an event with a guy called Tony Robbins, who's a very well-known figure in the personal development space, and that was where I had my lightning moment. So at this point, I'm 23 years old, and bam, it just hits me, and I cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes, because in that moment,
Wow.
I realised that my real driver was nothing to do with money. Time's a healer. It'll be okay with time. I disagree. Time is not a healer. Perspective is the healer. And I call it the legacy. And a legacy isn't something you leave behind, it's something you build whilst you're still here.
So, North Star, how would one go about finding a North Star?
Well,
My guest today is Will Polston, a business strategist, performance coach, a TEDx speaker, and a best-selling author of North Star Thinking. Great book. Will, welcome to Working on It.
thank you. Looking forward to the conversation.
So, let's go straight in. You say your North Star, I've read your book, by the way, so got a few things to pick out of it. The North Star should be like emptying the sea with a spoon. That's a pretty impossible task, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah, that's the whole point. I get some sort of perplexed faces when I first mention that to people. So the whole idea for me was that I spent years chasing specific outcomes and achieving the goal. And I get to the goal and then only to then set another goal and another goal. And I call it when-then syndrome. You know, when I get there, then I'll be okay. When I get there, then I'll be all right. When I get to this point, then I'll be at peace. And it didn't work. So the whole concept of having a North Star is that you have a life mission that you never accomplish. It's never finished. You've never got to the end of it, but it's something that fires you up every day. It gives you direction. It gives you focus. And are there milestones and goals along the way? Absolutely, of course there are. And that's the whole ethos of it, is that you use it as your guiding light rather than getting somewhere. And it kind of comes back to the famous story I'm sure you and many of the listeners have heard of. It involves a baby born in December a couple of thousand years ago, and there were three men supposedly wise all carrying presents, and they followed a star. But in every version of the story that I've ever heard, they never actually went to the star. They just used it as their guiding light. It gave them the direction to be able to get to the goal of where they wanted to get to. And that's kind of how I think about it.
Okay, do you know what? I never actually thought of it, by the way, but that's actually really good and very true too. I too have never heard the fact that they've never reached the actual end of the North Star. But yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, like the guiding light. Really good. How did you come up with that then?
So it was kind of from personal experience was a huge component of it. So to go all the way back, the short version is I grew up with a belief that money equaled happiness. And I have got two very wealthy uncles. One's a billionaire, one's a multimillionaire. And my dad hated his job. He used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And he was one of those people, Brad, that when he walked in the room at the end of the day or walked in the house at the end of the day, there was this tension, this stress that you could feel the moment he came in the room. And I always remember that. And I remember being about 10 years old, coming home from school one day, and my dad had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. And I remember thinking, yes, this is it. Dad's going to be just like Uncle Steve. My Uncle Steve is like really charismatic. He's the life and soul of the party, full of energy. And so I remember thinking, this is it. Short version is that business never materialized. He was quit his job to set up a business with my Uncle Steve. That never happened. And then my dad fell into what you and I would describe as having feelings of depression. Slept in a separate room with my mum, curtains shut all day, didn't leave the house, all the stereotypical stuff. And I just remember at that moment thinking, well, Uncle Mark, he's a billionaire, he's really happy. Uncle Steve, he's a multimillionaire, he's really happy. There's Dad, when he worked in London, yes, he was stressed and frustrated, but he still earned good money. Now he has no money, does no job. He's really not clearly having a great time, it's obvious money equals happiness. So that sent me off on that tangent. So I was the kid at school in my early teens, buying and selling and ducking and diving and making money and doing that stuff. And I earned a lot of money very young through multiple paper rounds and doing all the various different things I did. I eventually got into financial services. I ran a division of a stock brokerage, and that was where I first stumbled across personal development. And the more personal development I did, the more money I made. So for me, personal development was just simply a vehicle to make more money. I came across NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It taught me how to sell better. And then one day I went to an event with a guy called Tony Robbins, who's a very well-known figure in the personal development space. And that was where I had my lightning moment. So at this point, I'm 23 years old, and bam, it just hits me. And I cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes, because in that moment,
Wow.
I realised that my real driver was nothing to do with money. It was never really about money. What it was really about was my dad, how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of, and the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I'd become aware of that because as I was kind of growing up through my late teens, I was earning a lot of money. Even 20 odd years ago now, I was earning 20 grand a month. I had the convertible cars, the watches, the tailored suits. I had the detached house with the double garage and the gated drive by the time I was 23, like all of this stuff. And it was constantly just chasing. And I was like, there's got to be something else. And it was that unlock moment 13 years ago that really made me realize, wow, this isn't what it's about. And what it's really about is being able to detach from the outcome, focus on having this life mission. And the life mission that I created in that moment that stayed the same for the last 13 years is helping people achieve their full potential so that it benefits them, their family, their friends, their community, society, humanity, and the universe via what I call the ripple effect. So yeah, that's kind of where it all came from.
Well, okay, it's pretty a long one that to unpack. But the two things, one is just a quick one. You had all this great stuff that people tend to aspire to and think that that's their North Star, if you like the houses, the cars, all these items. When you had those, did you feel fulfilled?
No. So fulfillment, don't get me wrong, I like nice stuff. I like nice stuff. I still want nice stuff. I want to have great experiences. Fulfillment does not come from having certain things or making a certain amount of money. Can you have more peace when you're earning a certain amount of money? Yes, you can. Can you have not more fun, but are you able to have more experiences when you have more choice? Yes, I believe that you absolutely can. Fulfillment comes from the type of work that you're doing, and what the work is that you're doing is the things that if they're your highest values and you're making an impact on others. Fulfillment almost always comes from you doing the things that you value most in a way that's beneficial to others. And if you can then turn that into a way of being able to generate money and do all of those things, then the money's the byproduct. That's kind of the way that I look at things. So, I had nice stuff. Now, we can go into it if you want. Then I also, during that period of time over the last 13 years, made a lot of money and then lost a lot of money. I've lost everything twice. I'm 37 years old, right? So I've had the highs and the lows. I've been in over £300,000 worth of personal debt as well, right? So I've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and I can definitely say being in a position to have money readily available definitely makes life easier than not having it available. But just constantly thinking, well, the bigger house, the more cars, the more watches, the more money earned in the month, that definitely doesn't lead to fulfillment.
And you mentioned that you cried yourself for a little while at Anthony Robbins' show. What was the feelings of that then at that point? That takes us back to that moment.
Yeah, so the exact moment was, right, so I went to that event, so some context to it. So I ran a division of a stock brokerage at that point. It was my boss at the time, was a guy called Adam Stark, and there was about 8 of us. I think there was about 8 of us that were really, really driven within the company. And so there was the 3 directors and about 5 others that were really committed to being their best in lots of different areas. They'd learn, they'd train, they'd do certain things. And I was one of those 8. So we went to the event, and I was going there to be able to basically work out how to have more energy and how to make more money. and create a bit more time for myself. Because at the time I used to get the 5:45 train into London. Depending on the day, I would be home anywhere between 7 and 8 o'clock at night. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun. I was good at what we did, made a lot of money, but it was, I was searching for something more. And there was a particular story that Tony shared, and actually if you go on YouTube and you type Thanksgiving story, you get the exact story. So Tony has something called Basket Brigade that started because when he was a kid, one day someone knocked at the door on Thanksgiving, which is obviously the Americans' day. I think it's the 25th of November from memory, or 25th or 26th of November, that is the day where they sort of do a bit like what we do for Christmas Day. You know, there's turkey and they have these moments. And Tony's family was really poor. They couldn't afford Thanksgiving dinner. And someone came and knocked at the door and they had basically a free Thanksgiving dinner. And Tony was all excited, answered the door, ran to his dad and said, someone's here to give us food for Thanksgiving. And the guy comes to the door and said, we don't accept charity, and tried to slam the door in his face. And I was like, wow. And what it actually was for me was a metaphor in that moment, because what my dad always used to say about my uncles was they just got lucky.
Oh, okay.
And I just started crying because it was the perfect metaphor. And it wasn't actually until about 6 years later when I rewatched the video, I was adamant that what Tony said in that story was they just got lucky or something. Because I related it so much to my own experience. I literally heard what my dad said, not what was said, if that makes sense. It was the metaphor. And what it actually meant in that moment was that from that, Tony's dad ended up leaving because of maybe the guilt and the shame that he felt he couldn't provide for his family or whatever it was. But it was that moment that Tony sparked this inspiration, this drive to make sure that other people don't go through that. So he started buying, I think it was literally buying one Thanksgiving dinner. The next year he did 2, then he did 4, and now they've got billions of people that get fed over the last 40 years. So for me, it was like, wow, if that moment was a catalyst for this man who I respect so much to go and do such great good in the world, maybe my own experience of my observation and perception of what happened with my dad is my inspiration to want to make a difference to others. So that was the moment, and it was just this realization, wow, it's never really been about money. The driver's never, ever really been about money. What it was really about was my dad, and how, in my perception, my dad hadn't achieved his full potential, and the detrimental impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family. Because there was moments, you know, when he didn't have work, and don't get me wrong, I've had a really loving childhood. You know, I haven't gone through poverty before he left his job. We always went on holiday every year, and even growing up, I still always had food in the fridge. I was really fortunate in that respect. But what did change was my mum, who was, I was one of 4, and I was the eldest at about 10, and my baby sister's 10 years younger than me, and then we've got a couple in between, brother and sister in between. My mum was then going out and working 3 different jobs to keep our roof over our head and things like that. So just life changes. I knew it. My sister was always going to different babysitters, and I just realised life changed and thought, wow, this could be different if Dad had done certain things. So yeah, that's been my driver. I just don't want to see the suffering, quote unquote suffering, that can happen when people don't do what it is that they are capable of doing.
I mean, that's quite a big realisation, isn't it, to have that, an emotional one too, by the sounds of it. So yeah, a good event to go to, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, it was life changing, and I think it was super meaningful for me, and I've been back since, and I've done a few of Tony's things. I've had the privilege of meeting him, and he's been a huge inspiration in my life and many others.
I think just picking up on that, like going to an event and putting yourself out there, and regardless of what's happened to you previously, you've then said, you know what, I want to better myself. Let me get amongst those sort of people. Let me go. Obviously, I'm sure it costs a bit of money as well to go there and do this event. Whereas some people think, oh no, not really for me, because I don't really put myself out there. You go along these meet people. It's just the same old message all of the time. You went to that particular one, didn't realise what you were going to hear and how much it resonated with you. And then look, it's completely changed your life. I think it's the fact of, what I mean is like the fact of putting yourself out there, just putting yourself among those sort of people and really pushing yourself as much as you can. because you
Yeah.
never know what it's like reading a book, isn't it? Like there's at least one golden nugget in every single book, so you think you just have to read it. It might be the last page, like you just never know, do you?
You
Something just
don't.
switches something in your brain, and you just gives you a bit of a different thought process, I think.
Absolutely. I think with events, there's loads of events you can go to. And what I think about is when I'm considering, and I invest a substantial amount in my own personal development, I spend well over £100,000 a year on my own personal development, and I travel literally 6,000 miles 3 or 4 times a year to go and be in a room with other like-minded people. And I think that when there's various different things that you can get. So I talk about the ultimate peer group, and the ultimate peer group consists of mentors, so people that are a few steps ahead of you. And that's not always in business, that might be in relationships, that might be in health, So people that have got a result that you've got that you want to get. There's people that are your peers, that are people that are at the same level as you that you can use to challenge and use as healthy competition. I know you love doing high rocks, and when you're doing high rocks, it's healthy competition at peer level, isn't it? And then you've got mentees, people that are a few steps behind you that you can pass on your knowledge and wisdom to as a way of paying it forward or paying it back, depending on what perspective you look at. So yeah, that for me is kind of how I think about it. And when I think about that information, you can gain that directly, paying a mentor and being able to voice note them one-on-one and do that, or you can get it indirectly from books or YouTubes or listen to podcasts, and you can gain those things. But generally what I'm looking for is what are the results that people have got by, if I want to go to that event and there's a particular result I want, have the people got those results is the first thing that I want to get. And then the other thing that I think about is how like-minded are they? Have they got similar values? Because there's certain groups where I look at and I don't know if they've got the same values, but it's the same with a coach. I think about if I want to go and learn a book, people ask me all the time, well, what book should I read? I go, well, what's your biggest problem? What's your biggest challenge right now? Read the book that is most likely to solve your biggest challenge, rather just going, I'm going to read the Will's top 10 books because he says they were amazing. Well, they might be amazing for me because of the time I was at in my life. I mean, I'm sure you've had books that you've read them and years later you reread them and it's like reading a completely different book because of where you're at that point. So if you're looking for a book or a podcast, find the thing that's most likely to solve your problems. And when I think of coaches or mentors, I look at it kind of in 4 different angles. So for me, the 4th most important thing is their qualifications. What qualifications have they got? Then I look at their experience, like what have they done? Then I look at what result have they got themselves. And then what trumps the result they've got themselves is the result they've got others. So I'm most interested, if I want to engage in a coach or a mentor or someone that's on a podcast as a guest or someone that's written a book, how many people have got the result by using their information? And that for me is kind of the lens that I look at when it comes to events or coaches or mentors, which hopefully people find helpful.
Yeah, I think with that, like you said about the book part, you can really. It's so funny you mentioned that about you've read a book and then a few years later suddenly it resonates in a different level. It's so true because I have actually done that a couple of times. So I'll read that again, and you understand it because now you've had all those life experiences of those previous years or that gap between reading it the first time, and you can just take things on board in such a different way. And yeah, it's really, really powerful, really good. You mentioned in your book about gratification and the power of it. What's your how do you do it then? What made you think that way?
Great question. What made me think that way? So I spent years chasing the very things I didn't have. And whether that was the house, the car, the you name it, right? That was the thing. I was always, and the moment I'd get it, I'd be looking at the next thing. I spent years doing that, and that in itself can create a lot of suffering because you're on this hedonic treadmill, and I refer to it as when-then syndrome. When I get this, then I'll be okay. When I get there, then I'll be all right. But I think the thing that really did it for me was when I went through some really, really tough times, like extreme debt, extreme challenges, just not knowing how I was going to get out of it. And ultimately, Brad, there's 2 ways to get what you want in life. and 2 ways to get grateful, I suppose. Number 1 is to go out and get the thing that you want, and the second is to want what you have. And there's a famous riddle, and it goes along the lines of, for whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, whatever they have will be taken from them. Something to that effect. Matthew 13, 11, 12, I think it is. And it's a passage, and I kind of see it like a riddle. And most people think that the answer to the riddle is money. Whoever has money will be given more, and they'll have an abundance. Whoever does not have money, even what they have will be taken from them.
There's that thing, isn't it? Money goes to money. It's always that way. They just simplify it, but there's so much more to it.
And the answer isn't money, it's gratitude. Whoever has gratitude will be given more, and they'll have an abundance. Whoever does not have gratitude, even what they have will be taken from them. So it's enabling that to happen. So I work hard at it. And in my darkest times, it forced me to see both sides. And I say both sides because everything in life is neutral. Everything is neutral. It's all a matter of perspective. And I'm sure you've had tough times in life. And often what will happen is people will have an experience in life, and then decades later or years later, months later, sometimes even weeks later, they'll look back and go, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. So they'll say, time's a healer. It'll be okay with time. I disagree. Time is not a healer. Perspective is the healer. But the difference is most people don't know the right questions to ask to gain the perspective in the moment. So what happens is it takes them decades or years to gain the perspective. But we can change that in the moment. We have our prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking brain. It's the thing that we have that enables us to think. And when we think, we can change the perspective when we have the appropriate questions to ask. So one of the things that I intentionally do, and I do it most days, I have my little black book and I'll write out things I'm grateful for. I mean, I actually have this ring that I wear, and on the inside of my ring, it's engraved, and it says, I am grateful for all that I am, all that I do, all that I have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's just a little reminder for me each day to be grateful, because no matter how good or bad things are, if we stay grateful, then it's a better perspective. And I'm human. I have days where things test me and challenge me, but it reminds me to kind of stay centered. And the actual process that I personally use of practicing gratitude is drawing on the feelings by writing things out on a daily basis. And I use a process called PEBEP. And PEBEPs are just a crap acronym because it doesn't spell anything, but it stands for people, experiences, belongings, expectations, and privileges. So what I do is I review the previous 24 hours and I'll write down what I'm grateful for, what people, experiences, belongings, expectations, and privileges from the previous 24 hours. Why do I do that? I do that because what I've realized when I didn't do that, I would just say the same things every time. Oh, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my son, my partner, and so on and so forth. You're not really feeling grateful, you're just doing the exercise. Whereas when I think about the previous 24 hours, I really have to think. So I think about the people I'm grateful for, the people that have helped me or have served me or whatever it might be. I think about the experiences, the things that I got to do, my belongings, and that might be my laptop, it might be my pen, it might be my television. And then the two really powerful ones are expectations and privileges. So most people have things that they just expect to happen every day. You drove here today. Now, I imagine you expected there to be air in your tyres this morning. Yeah, you expected there not to be a 12-hour delay in the drive here because there wasn't a pile up. You expected when you had a shower this morning to be hot water. You expected that I would show up. So there's, and then there's the privileges. How many things are we privileged for that we take for granted every day in this country? Electricity, Wi-Fi, hot water, clean water, drinking water. There's so many things that you and I just take for granted every day. So it forces me to look at the small things, because what might seem like a normal day by most people's standards, when I use that lens and I focus on those 5 areas: people, expectations, privileges, experiences, and belongings, then I think about those things and I go, it really forces me to look. So that's an answer to your question. And I think it's probably one of the most powerful chapters in my book, and you can have some really challenging situations go on, that with the power of gratitude can dissolve those feelings. Yeah.
And that's why you say you do it 24 hours, because then it's
Well, yeah.
it's almost like a reset, isn't it?
The 24 hours. The reason I do 24 hours is because it forces me to focus on what might be some menial things. So when I do it tomorrow morning, I will be saying I'm grateful that I decided to go to Mr. Cavendish and have a coffee this morning because I got there a bit early and I bumped into you and I got to introduce you to Craig. Yeah. So that would be one of the things I got to do, because that would be beneficial for you. It would be beneficial for Craig. It would be beneficial for your listeners, should you decide to get him on the show. Phenomenal definitely. Guy. So that's an example of something I'd look for that is really, really minor that I would do. I was grateful for the fact that what would normally take me longer to come in. So I left at the time that I would normally leave, but I forgot that it's school holidays. So what would normally take me 45, 50, 55 minutes to get in today actually only took me 25 minutes because there was no traffic. And because of that, I got to meet you. So I was grateful for the fact there was no traffic, right? So, and the ripple effect that happened from that. So that's that. But the other extreme of it, Brad, is when you're going through a real tough time. So a great example of that was I spent years playing ice hockey. 23 years I was playing ice hockey. In 2015, we were playing our rivals. So you're South London, right? Yeah. So in North London, you have the Haringey races. And one day we were playing the Haringey races at Chelmsford, where I played for many years. And I was skating down the ice and I took a shot. And as I took a shot, one of their players came to check me, but he cross-checked me, meaning he took his stick, and I'm a small guy, even on skates, and he basically cross-checked me across my face. So the stick went across my face, literally from the horizontal stick across my face. When I was skating at probably 25, 30 miles an hour, he was probably doing about the same. So imagine the impact of that.
Oh, wow,
and he went in, hit me, I got knocked out, went down, face down on the ice, lips stuck to the ice. As I kind of come around, there was claret everywhere. And I kind of come up and I could see all of this like skin up in my nose. Short version of the story was he'd really, really badly broken my nose to the point where teammates of mine wincing when they're looking at my face because my nose was over to my left, my septum was over to my right. It was horrific. Anyway, I go to first aid and they go, I think it might be broken. I was like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Look at the state of my face. Go to hospital. They said the same, confirmed it. And they said, right, you're going to have what's known as an MUA, manipulation under anaesthetics. They put me under, bend it back. We can do that in a few days' time. But then you're probably going to have what they call an open nose septorhinoplasty, which is where they cut your nose, lift it up, rebuild your whole nose, which I've had since. So that's why it looks somewhat normal. Yeah. But I decided to use gratitude, knowing what I knew about changing perspectives on this particular guy. So I sat down and I got my pen and paper out and I wrote out 10 reasons I was grateful for this happening. And I was writing things like, I'm grateful for the fact that it only broke my nose and not my jaw or any other part of my face. I was grateful for the fact it hadn't happened before. Anyway, I write out these 10 reasons I'm grateful for. I sit there and I picture this guy. I just want to go and kill him, Brad. I still want to go and get him. Right, so I think, I need to do more. So I write out 25 reasons I'm grateful for, and I get present, and I think about him, and I still want to go out and get this guy. I write out 100 reasons why I'm grateful, and now I'm really digging deep, and I'm using a process where we work out what we call the primary reason, and then we look at the secondary and tertiary. So I'm grateful for the fact that it happened, and then what was the benefit of that, and what was the benefit of that. So we're sort of getting more granular. Right, 100 reasons. I still want to go out and get this guy. I write 150 reasons. I sit there, I picture this guy. I'm at peace. Nothing. No ill feeling, nothing whatsoever. So I was at peace. I was at fine. It was cool. It was what it was. Now, for 15 months before I had the open nose septum, I could only breathe out of one nostril, 20% of I only had 20% ability to breathe out of one nostril. The other one I couldn't breathe out of at all. That's an inconvenience, That's a real inconvenience in ways that you wouldn't imagine. But a couple of years later, so I used to do a lot of videos. I used to do remember Facebook Live when Facebook Live first came out. So I used to do these Facebook Lives called Will's Wisdom, and I used to always start saying, "Hey, it's Will Polster, make it happen," because that was the name of my company at the time, and I would go into sharing something that was hopefully beneficial to people. And my mates used to rip me for it. Right, they used to
Because
really
of the nose?
No, because of just what I was saying. They'd say, hey, it's Will Polston, make it happen. I'll walk into the pub or the rugby club and they go, oh, it's Will Polston, make it happen. And they'd do all this stuff. Anyway, one day I get this message from this guy, and because Will, I've been watching your videos, and my instant thought was he's going to start taking the mickey out of me. He said, they've been really helpful. They've inspired me. Just wanted to let you know the current club owner is leaving. And the club is going to go into disarray. It's going to fold. Now, bearing in mind, there's a few dozen senior players and a few hundred junior players that if this club folds, all stop playing ice hockey. Because I've been watching your videos, found them really beneficial. And because of that, I've decided to take over the club. I'm taking over not only the adult club, but I'm also taking over the whole junior academy. And I just, in that moment, and he said, I just want to thank you. And I went, wow. Because for me, that was the real power of gratitude in that moment. Because if I hadn't have done that work, then every time I saw this guy come up on Facebook, I would have been triggered. So I would have had to unfriend him, knowing that he was the guy that caused this pain to me. I didn't. As a result of that, years later, he carried on watching my video, or he watched my videos because we were still connected on social media. And then arguably, years later, dozens of players were still able to play hockey in North London, ice hockey in North London, and hundreds of junior players were able to play because of that moment, because I chose to get grateful.
Wow, that's a really good story. That's a really good story. Proper full U-turn, isn't it, that?
Full U-turn. So in answer to your question, the power of gratitude, I just think it's one of the most underrated things that people have. And being able to do that is super powerful.
And help someone at the end. Well, helps many people, I suppose.
People. And suffering at any degree, you know, there's a spectrum of suffering, but suffering comes from wanting something to be different to how it is. And peace comes from the acceptance of how something is. And that's what it enables us to do. Now, it doesn't mean you don't strive. It doesn't mean you don't want to pursue more things. You know, I want to live my North Star. I'm inspired to do certain type of work. But if I can continue to be driven and drive and do all of these things whilst being content with where things are at right now, then I've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, brilliant. That's such a good example. So that probably inspires you to continue to do that. That's a sort of like a real proof that it actually works, isn't it?
I think so.
Excellent. So you mentioned up and down journey. So I actually thought it was actually quite a smooth ride, to be fair, but clearly I didn't dig deep enough. So take us through your business journey then, the TEDx talks and the business you've started to now, how you help so many business owners.
So kind of going all the way back. So when I was younger, I was really money driven and I was buying stuff. So I used to buy something out of the paper, or I would actually look in the paper. There's a paper called the Essex Chronicle. And this is way before you had Facebook Marketplace. People would sell things in the newspaper. So I'd look in the newspaper, see the things for sale. I would then look on eBay, see how much they were selling for. And then if I knew I could go and buy something out of the paper for £20, knowing that it was selling on eBay for £40, I would go and buy it. And I would do all of this stuff. So I was doing that. And then I had a couple of different paper rounds. And then when I was 15, and I got a job as a pot boy doing glass collection in a bar, and I worked that on Saturdays and Friday nights and Saturday nights. So I was earning a lot of money very young. But by the time when I was probably 14, I was earning probably £200 a week, which this is over 20 years ago now, 25 years ago. So what that got me into was fashion. So I really got into fashion, and then I decided what I wanted to do was work in this designer clothes shop. So here in Chelmsford, they had a shop called Zaga. Zaga at the time was the only shop in the world that sold Gucci, Prada, Dolce & Gabbana and Etro in the same shop that wasn't a city, because Chelmsford didn't used to be a city then. And I was fortunate enough to get this job. I loved it. And my goal, Brad, back then was I just wanted to be a millionaire. And I loved clothing, so I thought, well, what better way to do it than own my own clothes shop? So I did that, worked there for a few years. I had an opportunity to go to college. I wanted to study business studies. My mum really wanted me to go to college. I was working in this shop all summer, and then I said, I promised my mum that I would go to college. So I did. I went to college. And quit on day one. And that way I ticked my box to mum that I'd gone to college, because she didn't say I had to do the whole thing. I kept my promise. So I did do that. And I was going to study business. And I thought, why do I need to study business at college? I'm working in this shop. I can learn everything I need to learn. And that was the plan. Now, what's interesting is that a couple of years into that, a local guy just up the road from where we are now was a legend in the industry, started a clothes shop, and short version is it failed. Now, what's really interesting is what I never knew then but know now is Craig, who I introduced you to earlier, he was actually the investor in that shop. That shop failed, and I remember being 18 years old thinking, wow, if this guy can't do it, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. So I need to do something else. Now, at the time, our clientele in this shop pretty much fit into 4 key criteria. They were property developers, stockbrokers, professional footballers and drug dealers. And I just worked out I need to be one of those. So the first one I ruled out was being a professional footballer because I'm rubbish at football. Second one I ruled out was being a property developer because I didn't have loads of money to do property. So I was left with 2 options, be a drug dealer or go into the world of broking. I didn't become a drug dealer and I went into the world of broking. So I did that, did very well. We touched on that earlier. And then I had the big realization moment and I did leave the city, but I didn't go straight into the coaching business. I set up a renewable energy business, and that renewable energy business went from a standing start to having 85 employees within 18 months. We were growing, just reinvesting everything back into the business. Just at the point we got to doing £1 million a month, government changed the legislation, killed that business pretty much overnight. Myself and my business partner at the time thought, well, what else should we do? We ended up setting up a property investment business that turned into a property education business. I really wanted to do the coaching side of things, so did that as well. And that was where my sort of coaching business started. And then, well, what actually happened, I'll go there a layer deeper. So the renewable energy business failed. And at the time, Brad, I had a girlfriend who was a dental nurse. But just before we went on holiday, so all of the shenanigans of what went on in the business, I need to go on holiday. So we booked this holiday to Cancun, Mexico, and paid extra for all of the all-inclusive spirits and all that stuff because I used to drink then, I don't drink now. And I remember her saying to me, Will, you need to go and see the hygienist and get your teeth cleaned by the hygienist, which was a friend at the dental practice that we worked in. So I was like, yeah, cool. The hygienist clipped my gum. It got infected days before we went on holiday. And I went back and she said, well, I'm really sorry. I've got bad news. Like, you need to take these certain antibiotics that you can't drink alcohol on. I was like, you're kidding. We're going to the land of tequila, you know? how am I not going to be? So I didn't drink alcohol. But, and this is the power of a book, when one night we went out, and we went to a place called Coca Bongos, which for anyone that's ever been to Cancun, it's this famous place. It's like a nightclub, but a theatre and a show, and they've got midgets swinging from the ceiling and all this stuff. Yeah. And she was throwing back tequila like it was water, got absolutely battered. I walked back to the hotel with her over my shoulder at 4:00 in the morning, wake up in the morning, she's got her head down the toilet throwing up. And she said, oh, Will, I can't go in the sun today. I said, well, I'm going in the sun. I haven't drunk alcohol. My holiday's already been ruined. I'm not sitting in the sun. I'm not sitting in a room all day. So I went out with a book. And the book that I went out with was a book called The Hero by Rhonda Byrne. Now, what I hadn't mentioned was the first personal development book I ever read was a book called The Secret many years prior to that. So I go out with this book, The Hero. And this is, at this point, 2.5 years into having had the big realization at the Tony Robbins event. And there's a little passage in the book talking about a guy called Mastin Kipp. And at the time, Mastin Kipp had a website called The Daily Love. He used to post motivational quotes on Twitter every day. And one day, he got retweeted by Kim Kardashian. And he went from 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers overnight, just shot up. Wow. And I just started crying again. You know, I'm a big crybaby. Yeah. And I started crying because I just went, wow, Will, you idiot. You don't need to wait until you're quote-unquote successful to be able to start helping other people. You could just post a motivational quote on social media and that could be beneficial for people. So I did. I came home and I posted a motivational quote on Facebook and Instagram in the morning. And a week later I thought, well, you idiot, some people don't go on social media in the morning. You should post one in the afternoon as well. So I did. And then a week after that, I set up my own website. And a week after that, I wrote my first blog. And 3 months after that, I had a 10,000 strong social media following. So that one moment of reading that book was the opening to the start of the coaching business, and then in the 4th month I ran my first event. So that's what kind of got that going. Throughout the coaching business, I've had other businesses within that. I had a mushroom supplement company, a marketing franchise, set up a small little private equity business to invest into construction professional services. I've got so John Holiday, I think you've had as a guest. So John and I have got a business together called Super Profits. So yeah, there's been a few different things along the way as well. So yeah, that's a bit of background to the various different business involvements.
And what do you do now then? You mentioned about helping business owners and such.
So the core business now is we've rebranded. It was Make It Happen, and then we put everything under my personal brand, and now we've called it Evolution Institute. So I help business owners think differently so that they can have businesses that operate without them, and we help them to unlock the next level of potential performance and purpose. So I run a few different mastermind groups. I run one called Legacy, which is a 3-day retreat every quarter for business owners that have already kind of exited, either operationally exited or they've sold their business and they're looking for life after exit, that next chapter, whatever that might be. I have the Evolve Mastermind, which helps people between £1 and £10 million have the business that operates without them. And I have the Evolve Inner Circle that is for businesses sort of doing under £1 million that want to get to that level, but all essentially using the principles that I've learned of coaching over the years to help people unlock that next level.
And what would you say is different to what you offer, but effectively kind of getting people to exit? What strategies would you say you adopt to perhaps others?
Well, so first of all, I think about the two types of exit. So I think if there's an operational exit and there's an ownership exit. The first thing that I think that I do differently to most is I challenge people as to what they actually want. So many people, they go blind into, I've got to sell, I've got to have this big liquidity event, I've got to make all this money, and they don't give thought to why. And actually, for a lot of people, they don't need to sell their business. They just need to create a business that operates without them, and then have the thing that is inspiring for them to work on thereafter. So I've worked with a huge amount of people that have exited their business and then they're lost. You know, they've got all the money in the world that they could possibly want. You know, the most extreme example, a client of mine sold his business for over £300 million and didn't know what to do. You know, that's the extreme version. Wow. But I think the main thing that I do is I challenge people as to what is it that they really truly want, not what they think they can get, what they truly want. Because so many people, when I sit down with them, they tell me what they think they can get, not what they want. So I get people really clear on what they want. We get them aligned with their North Star. So yeah, that's probably the first thing. The second thing is what a huge amount of people will do when they're helping people on that transition is they're so focused on people getting that exit. So let's say it's the liquidity event, normally because they've got some sort of incentive to do so. So there's a lot of companies that will work with you and take a percentage of your exit and charge you a retainer to get to that point. They don't help you think about what happens thereafter. I care about what happens after, hence life after exit. What are you going to go and do? And the people that don't have the big depression or experience the feelings of depression once they've exited the business, they already know what they're doing thereafter. And I call it the legacy. And a legacy isn't something you leave behind, it's something you build whilst you're still here. So looking at that, I think is a key component. And I think the other thing, I've been really fortunate over the years. So I've done over 7,500 hours of one-on-one coaching. I've worked with over 2,500 people in different formats. So I'm not just teaching my method. I've never actually sold a business and had the mega liquidity event. So I'm not doing it from my own experience. I'm identifying what is it that, so I don't have this one model of going, well, I did this, and this. If you just follow this way, you're going to get there. I want to know, where are you at? What do you want? Where do you want to go? And then we create the bespoke path for what you really want. So yeah, hopefully answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the people think of like selling a business as the end result, the North Star in a sense, you know, like if you look at it like that, like my purpose is to build this business so I sell it for, like you say, a high payday. But you don't necessarily have to sell it. I had a business mentor a few years ago, Brad Sugars, of Action Coach, and there's part of it, like every 6 months you'd have like a small group thing that you'd go along, and he'd come along, and about 15, 20 of us, and we'd spend 2 to 3 days going through the entire business, evaluate everything. And he always used to say to me, what's your sell date? What's your sell date? And back then I was really, really passionate. I was like, no, never am I selling it. But then I asked him, I said, why do you keep asking me this? And he was like, well, if you get to it, to a sell date, then it's at a stage where it runs without you. It's a profitable enterprise that runs without you. And if you can do that, then you've got options. You can either sell it or you can see it as an asset and it just churns out pound notes every single month.
Yep.
And I think he just puts it like a real high level, top down, sell the business, because any business that runs without the owner and it has systems and processes in place, the EBITDA is more times multiple, isn't it? So it's worth a lot more. So, but then if you get to that stage, then all of a sudden it's an asset that just keeps bringing in income.
Yeah.
I think people see that, I always get to sell it. You're like, well, if you actually look beyond that, you can have a very nice life, because at the end of the day, you're going to sell it. And I know two people that sold businesses, and they've, I know two people that sold businesses, but I know two that had a bit of a negative effect. They came out of a very nice payday, but then they were complete loss for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, and they're normally the people that come to me.
Yeah.
Literally dozens of them that I've worked with that are like, oh my God, what do I do? So the thing, and I think Brad is right. I've got huge respect for what he's done and what he's built with Action Coach. I think he's right. I think sometimes the message is always determined by the receiver. I think his intention is 100% right. I think that what happens is the people that go, well, I don't want to sell it. This is not the thing I want to sell. If they don't resonate with that message, then they ignore all of the good, great advice that he can offer. Whereas if we turn around and talk about the two types of exit, what exit do you want to have, an operational exit or an ownership exit? Once you have an operational exit, then you can sell it anyway, right? You put yourself in that position. So I think that almost always comes first. And sometimes it doesn't, but if you want to get the highest value, then it's from having the operational exit. And the I understand, and look, I get it, de-risking, taking money off the table and all of that stuff, I completely understand it. But there's also another piece that comes with it that almost every mergers and acquisitions expert or almost every business coach never deals with, which is identity level. So the strongest force in the human persona is to stay aligned with one's identity. And if you've had a business for 10, 15, 20 years, most people have not done the work that their business is a reflection of them and it's their identity. And anytime we have an experience in life where we deem it a significant emotional event, like your ones that really rock you and really, it's because we have a loss of identity. If you break up with a partner, you get divorced, you're no longer the husband or the wife identity, or you're not the boyfriend or girlfriend, you've broken up. Or if you lose a loved one, like your parent dies, you're no longer the son or daughter. Or you lose a child, you're no longer the mother or the father. You lose a job, you're no longer the employee. That can be that's the loss of identity. And what happens is we grieve the identity. And most people haven't detached from that identity piece. So we need to reinvent the identity or detach them from the identity of being that specific business owner. And it's super, super powerful because it works down from that. So I think of, and this is my adaptation of Robert Dilt's neurological levels of change, is we have your North Star, then we have your identity. Your identity creates your values and beliefs. Your values and beliefs create your behaviors. Your behaviors create your capabilities. Your capabilities create your environment. When most people want to make change, they make change at behavior level or capability level. But if I want to create meaningful change quickly, I just jump straight to North Star and identity level, because everything's downhill from there. So yeah.
I suppose that's when you liken it to, when you have children and they grow up and then they leave home.
Yeah.
You got that sort of like, is it the nest problem?
Empty nest.
Empty nest. And it's because you've had that identity of being the mum or the dad or the person that looks after that person. Now they've gone. Oh, probably like that maybe, because when you start a business, it kind of is your baby.
And people literally refer, it's my baby. It's my baby. It's everything I've ever done. And words create worlds. Language is so powerful,
I like that. Words create worlds.
The word
That's
abracadabra,
really
if you and I were talking about magic, you go, what's the magic word? Abracadabra, But the actual translation of abracadabra means I create as I speak. And avada-kedavra means I destroy as I speak. So it's understanding that the language we're using is super powerful. Our words create our worlds, and becoming aware of that enables us to create a different reality for ourselves. Because there's a difference between actuality and reality. Reality is based on our perceptions. Actuality is the situation. So, yeah, that's how we can we can create those changes. So yeah, long-winded answer to your question, but I think that's the key difference, that when I'm working with people on these things, we're looking at where is it you really want to go, what is it you really want to do, and avoid people having those moments, those lulls, because they haven't given it the consideration.
So North Star, how would one go about finding a North Star?
Well, for me, it starts with not finding it. Yeah, we don't find it, we create it. So in my experience, there's 5 ways of creating your North Star. So the first way is that you already know it. You just already know it. You already know you've got this pull, this mission, this thing you want to do, and you're already aware of it. So that's the first thing. The second thing, way of creating it, is using a concept called Ikigai. So there's a concept that's born off a tiny little island off of Japan called Okinawa, and they live by this concept of an Ikigai, and the translation in English means a reason for being. So if you can imagine a Venn diagram, so basically 4 circles that overlap in the middle where it overlaps is your Ikigai, and it's an answer to 4 questions. Question number 1 is, what are you good at? Question number 2 is, what do you love? Question number 3 is, what can you be paid for? And question number 4 is, what does the world need? Which I think of like, what's a problem to be solved, or something that you care about. The answer to those 4 questions helps create the Ikigai. And that's one of the other ways of doing it. So the first way is you would know it. Second way is the Ikigai. Third way is by getting really, really clear on what I call your means values. So when we talk about values, most people will use words like, oh, I value trust and integrity and honesty. They're not values, they're social idealisms. A means value is the thing you do that gives your life meaning. And the best way of identifying your means values, it's free to do. There's a great guy, one of my mentors, called Dr. John DeMartini, and he has a process called the values determination process. You go on his website, it's free to do. It's 13 questions. My shortened version of that is answering 4 questions, and it's a STEM acronym. So S stands for space. Review, what do you spend, what's in your space? So if you take my office, for example, if you came to my office, there's loads of books everywhere and awards and various different things. But it's not just books. If you look into the books, what are those books? They're books on entrepreneurship and personal development. That gives you an indication of what I value. And I don't know if you can remember that old TV show. I think it's called Through the Keyhole.
Oh, yeah.
Who lives in a house
Keyhole.
like
That's
this?
it, yeah.
Right? And you'd look at it, and if it was a footballer, there'd be loads of football pictures and football shirts and all the rest of it. And you get an idea of what they value. It's the same sort of thing. So if I was to come into your house, Brad, I'm probably going to get an idea of what you value just by being in your space. The first one's the space. Secondly is time. What do you spend your time doing? What do you actually spend your time doing? Gives you an indication of what you value. Third is energy. What do you do that energizes you? And then 4th is money. What do you spend your money on? It gives you an indication. So yeah, that's value. So identifying your values, and that will give you an indication. 4th way of doing it is what I call doing a life audit. So the way that you do a life audit is, imagine an X and Y axis. So you've got the vertical axis and you've got the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, you've got plus 10, counting back down to 0, and then it goes down to minus 10 at the bottom. And then the horizontal axis you've got from your earliest memory until today, and then you plot your journey, so your highs and your lows of your life. And what you'll typically see is your lowest lows and your highest highs have a correlation. So my lowest lows, my experience with my dad around 10 years old, my highest highs is achieving the various things and stumbling across personal development. Well, there's a link there. So that's the situation there. And then the final way is, and these have expanded over the years as working with different people that I've uncovered certain things. The final one is to ask people, if you had all the money that you ever needed, you never needed to work for money, what would you then do? So you don't have to do all 5, but by answering them, what we see is the common themes. That helps identify what people's North Star is. So my North Star now is empowering people to unlock their next level of potential performance and purpose so that they can benefit their lives, their family lives, their friends, community, society, humanity. That's the thing that I do. And if you look at the common theme of everything that I do across all the things I mentioned, my space, my time, my energy, my money, You look at my life audit, the things I'd do if I had all the money that I ever needed, that would be that's a reflection of what I'm doing. So yeah.
And those processes, are they kind of like something that you do with your clients, stages that you go through with the clients?
Yes. So when I'm working with people, that is one of the first things we do, subject to whether I feel that's the most important thing. So sometimes it is, sometimes we jump around. So I don't have what I call a linear process where you have to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3.
Yeah.
What I look at is, what do you need most right now, and what's going to move the needle to get you where you need to fastest? And for some people, it's absolutely starting there. We need to get you clear on that, and then that unlocks what I call your North Star trajectory. So once you have your North Star, the guiding light, then we do still create a plan. You know, we have the 20-year goals, the 10-year goals, the 5-year goals, the 3-year goals, the 1-year goals, the 90-day goals. But what we do is we get clear on that, and they are the milestones whilst in pursuit of the North Star. It keeps us congruent, it keeps us aligned, and the process that I take people through gets them to acknowledge the progress they're making, so that they're focusing on the gain and not just the gap, because so many people are just focused on the gap of how far away they are from the thing they want to get to next. They're not reflecting on all of the things that they've done and the accomplishments that they've had to cultivate that sense of gratitude and peace and contentment whilst they're sort of on that trajectory.
I suppose the daily gratitude also plays a part in you travelling to your North Star, isn't it? Because it's almost like those little wins, isn't it? Sometimes we're so focused on just getting to that end result that we don't sometimes just pause a little bit and say, well, actually, it's a bit of a pat on the back.
Well,
Look how far we've come
yeah,
so far. Not done,
Yeah.
but, you know, to have that gratitude of how far you have actually come and a bit of reward to yourself.
So the process that we use with people is exactly that on a weekly basis. So I have a very simple, I call it traffic light process. So if you have your goals for the month, every week you review your progress on your goals for the month. Green if it's achieved, amber if it's in progress, red if it's not started. That does two things. One, it helps identify the priorities that we need to focus on. And two, it helps us identify and acknowledge what we have done. So it serves exactly that purpose.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I had a list of questions and we haven't even covered off one, but it's been absolutely brilliant. I love it. So you mentioned your North Star at the moment. Is that it? Is that the thing that you're chasing right now?
That's the thing that I'm
the big
pursuing.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, right, I see. So I suppose with that strategy that you have, is that anywhere could anyone find that, by the way, or is it something that you have sort of like in your leadership program?
Yes, I'm just trying to think of the way to do it. So if people go to willpolston.com, my website, I think it's /tools, there is a free download that has 75 questions to help them get clear on their North Star trajectory, and then a whole template for the 20-year, 10-year, 5-year, 3-year goals. It's there to download for free.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. So if someone, let's say, for instance, listening in their van right now, what would be the first things that they could put in place starting from tomorrow?
So if someone's driving their van right now, and I think that the thing that they'd be wise to consider is, I'm a huge thinker, Brad, right? I believe that if you think differently, you act differently. If you act differently, you get different results. Pretty much every great, I mean, even looking around this room, every single thing that exists in this room has been developed because someone once thought about it. So I think thinking is underrated. Most people just don't make time to think. So I think taking time to think and getting clear on what you really want, and what you would love for life to be like. So asking yourself the question, if I had Aladdin's lamp and I had 3 wishes with the genie and I could have life however I would like it, personally, professionally, and financially, 3 years from now, just getting a pen and paper and jotting that down, just starting, not worrying about the how, but just starting with that is a really good place to start as a basic thing. Or if they're driving along, even right now, just going, right, well, if you had no if there was no restraints, you wasn't worried about the how, what would you want life to look like a year from now or 3 years from now is a really, really important thing to start to give some consideration to.
And I would definitely recommend downloading that strategy that you've had, the questions, because just you listening to some there, I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? And I suppose to do that, you have to take that time out to actually, as you say, really think about what those answers would be in order for you to find your North Star or what the next steps are.
Yeah. I believe that any problem is simply an unasked or unanswered question. And what most people just don't have is the question. So when I wrote the book, I intentionally created the book so that people could read it from cover to cover and answer the questions. There's a load of questions at the end of every chapter. There's an 80-page free workbook to download that comes with the book, so that people never have to go on a program or do whatever. They don't need to do it. If they want to do that, they can do that. But you and I, Brad, have experienced enough people in business whereby the book is just the teaser, but you only really get the real juice if you pay whatever it is to go and do the training. So I intentionally wanted everything to be in there so people could read them cover to cover, download the workbook, work through the questions, and change their life and achieve more of what it is that they really want, personally, professionally, financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, be able to do those things. So yeah, I think that is a place to start and make that time. And lots of people say, well, I don't have the time. Make the time. There's no such thing as time management. Time management doesn't exist. All that exists is priority management. And if you make that time, you'll be amazed at what can happen in a short period of time.
Yeah, that's very true, because you liken it like, everyone says it, but I'll use the same thing. Elon Musk, like he has the same 24 hours in a day, and look what he's achieving. Like he's pretty much changing the face of the world.
But look at that. So I think this is a really, really key thing. And obviously there's been a lot of stuff said in years gone by about people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk becoming the world's first trillionaire. But if you actually look at their individual North Stars, what they really, really care about, Elon Musk wants to occupy Mars. That's his North Star actually isn't occupying Mars, because I would say occupying Mars is a milestone. What he really wants to do is protect the human race. That's really what he wants to do, because he believes, for all of the stuff that he knows, that if we stay on Earth, the human race is not going to exist. So his North Star is, I actually want to protect the human race. He believes that in order for that to happen, we've got to occupy Mars. Now, if you look at all of the different businesses that he's got, they're designed to enable that mission to happen. So he's driven by a North Star. Bill Gates is driven by a North Star. Lots and lots and lots of people are driven by a North Star. And that's the bit that I find fascinating. I love learning what is the driver. I've been obsessed for over 20 years of understanding what is it that drives people. And the people that I've found that are, certainly in my life, the people that are most inspirational are the most inspired. If you look at the people that are inspired, and you even take the word inspiration, in spirit. What's another word for spirit? Energy. When you're in your energy, it's like a torus field of energy. You do this stuff. I'm sure when you're doing this type of stuff, you can be doing it all day, and you've got as much energy, if not more, than you have at the end of the day. So it's got nothing to do with work. People don't burn out because they're working too hard. People burn out because they're not spending enough time doing the stuff they love doing. So when we find those people that are, we look at, they're so inspiring, it's because they're inspired. They're living their values, they're living their North Star, and the ripple effect that creates.
It's funny you should touch on the Elon Musk, his other businesses. Some people might say, well, he's gone on a bit of a tangent. They think, well, actually, no, every single business that he has, every project he's working on, does lean towards, as you say, is sort of like having humans living and breathing on Mars.
Yeah, I had people ask me a couple of years ago. They said, "Why have you?" There was two businesses that I got involved with, and people going, "That's random. Why have you done that?" So one of them was a mushroom supplement company. So we started 22. It was organic functional mushrooms, UK grown, 100% organic. And people go, well, that's so random. Why would you do that? Well, it was two reasons I wanted to do it. One is because I stumbled across the benefits of lion's mane for focus, memory, and mood. A lot of my clients, they want to unlock their next level. Well, having better focus, better memory, and better mood enables them to do that. Enables me to do that. And I couldn't find a product that I felt had those qualities, UK grown, organic, high strength, that existed. So we created it. So the golden thread was still about getting people unlocking their potential. improving their performance. That was them being, I get it now. Now, also, it was a business built to grow to sell. It was a way of me being able to demonstrate to my clients, this isn't just book theory, I'm doing this. So that was that. Another business, and this is one of my I suppose some people might call it passion projects, but I grew up playing ice hockey, and I wasn't in a position where my parents could afford for me to go and do all of the different training camps every year and do loads and loads of things. Now, a couple of my best mates ended up going and playing internationally. One's been a professional ice hockey player for his whole life. He's literally just retired this season, and played for Great Britain and all this stuff. But what I really wanted to do is I want to buy my club that I played for. I'm one of, I think at the time when I last saw, I was one of only 3 players that had played for 23 years or more for only the club and not been to any other clubs. And I wanted to buy the club, and I wanted to win the Elite League playoffs, which is a bit like the equivalent of winning the Champions League in football. And I didn't just want to win it. I wanted to do it with more homegrown players than any other club has ever done in history. Why? Because when I grew up, if you got to a certain age and you couldn't go straight to this level, then you had to go and play for other clubs or stop playing. And loads of people did that. So I want to be able to create that pathway for people to go all the way up to top flight, not need to go to other clubs. Well, that means we've got to build a 6,000-seater ice arena. We've got to do all these things. So I thought, well, how am I going to be able to make that happen? Well, if I have this marketing franchise, we get lots of local businesses, and I've got a pool of 200-300 businesses that are clients, that if I want to put an opportunity in front of them to sponsor the club, it's a win-win. So that's an example of something that's still aligned with a longer-term vision, because for me, that is one of the things that, and one day I will do it, will be a form of me being able to give back to the community here in Chelmsford, but also the community that I care deeply about, which is ice hockey, and being able to do that. So there's a component there as well.
And that all comes with, like you say, your North Star, doesn't it? It's just along that journey, things you grow or are able to pick up and grow along that way, which is brilliant. And experiences, good and bad, of course.
Exactly that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay, couple of quick fire round questions.
Yeah, look forward to them.
Yeah, so book you recommend the most, other than North Star Thinking?
Yeah, great question. So I tend to say that the book that I actually recommend the most, for me, it's still my number one book, is The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, because it was the first personal development book that I ever read, and that's what I tend to say for people if they're starting.
Yeah, good one. So you mentioned about self-development investment. What do you think is the best bit of money you've spent on yourself?
What is the best bit of money I've spent on myself? What a great question. I think being in, there's a few mastermind groups I've joined over the years, but when I've invested in, there's one particular group that I've invested in where I have been the smallest fish in the pond, but the people that I'm in the room with are literally people that I've been watching from afar on YouTube, like almost celebrity style status, and now I'm mates with them and having lunch with them, and I'm messaging them on WhatsApp. So I think being in the right room being when I have joined, and we've all got the same alignment, but I'm basically the smallest fish in the pond.
Yeah, that's important as well, isn't it? Because you need that, don't you, to lift you up, to grow, to get better at things, and have that advice to lean on. I think when you're the biggest fish in the pond, it has a bit of an expiry date, I find.
Yeah.
You can give back, but then you still need to better yourself.
Well, it comes back to those 3 things. I love helping people. I do it all day, every day. But when I spoke about the ultimate peer group, I'm wanting to be in the room at the mentee almost level, not the mentor level. And I've been in those rooms where I've left and people have messaged me going, well, the room's not going to be the same without, where I'm paying to be in it. The room's not going to be the same without you. I'm probably going to leave now because you're not in it. And that, whilst that's great for my ego, it makes me feel really good. It's like, well, that's not the reason why I'm paying to be there and traveling to be there. So being that person in the room has been invaluable. And I am spending a lot now, a lot of time, money, energy, effort with one particular group that I'm in, but it's definitely been the best that I've done. The acceleration, just the osmosis. I think of it like being dipped in honey. You know, if you get dipped in honey, you can't come out and not stick without some realizing.
Yeah,
in those environments.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, actually. So you mentioned you do gratitude in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a bit of a morning routine you stick with?
I do. I mean, I've got a 10-month-old baby, so my morning routine is a
okay.
bit different to how it used to be. But yeah, there's a few things that I do still do. So for me, meditation, I'm a huge advocate of meditation. Just 10 minutes a day, I find really, really beneficial. Some form of exercise most mornings, probably 4 or 5 days out of 7. I have a single passage that I read. So for about 8 years, I read a book called The Daily Stoic. I'm quite into ancient wisdom and stoicism. Now I read something called The Daily Dad that someone bought me as a gift. So I read a page of that, and I have a bunch of affirmations that I read. I learn most mornings something. So that might be listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast, and for me, it's just kind of natural. I don't have this block of 2 hours that I do. So I wake up. Before I even get out of bed, I do my 10-minute meditation. That might include some visualization, it depends. Then I will get up, go to the gym, exercise. I have some supplements that I take, so I do that. When I'm getting ready, just before I finish getting ready, I read the page of the Daily Dad, or what used to be the Daily Stoic. I have my affirmations, where nowadays I kind of know them off by heart. They're my bookmarks, so it just acts as the reminder to do them. When I get in the car, I put on an audiobook or on a podcast, so I'm learning there. And then I will do my gratitude normally when I kind of get to my desk or where I'm going to be sitting to do something. So yeah, they're a few of the things.
I mean, I think it's great, isn't it? People, I mean, it's going on for years, isn't it? The morning routine and the habits that you do, and the evening routine has now even crept into it now, isn't it? Because it sets you up for the day, the sleep. Well, you've got to work, so it's like you monitor your sleep, which I've really appreciated actually this year. I've started to look into the numbers a little bit more, so it's something that I've really, really appreciated. But so they say it starts the evening before and so on, but I know, like they may say, oh, everyone does that. You think, well, no. It's only when you really do it and you build that consistency with it, it compounds, and you start seeing some serious results. And you think most of the successful, probably all of the really successful people, have some sort of structure at the beginning and the end of their day. There's a reason for that, I think.
Well, so for me, it's very simple. Structure creates efficiency. If we want to be efficient, we've got to have structure. And sometimes there's time that is unstructured intentionally as well. So there's a whole chapter in my book called Master Your Time. So the other thing that I do most mornings is identify today's top priorities. So yes, I've got my calendar, I've got things that I know I'm doing. This interview is one of them, and the various different things I've got to do. But I also identify my today's top priorities that sits on something called a must-do list, and there's different sections to it. So today's top priorities, week ahead tasks, future tasks, and waiting on. But my today's top priorities helps me focus on what do I really need to do, what's the conversations I need to have, or the things I need to do that are going to move the needle that day. So that's also one of the things that I do in the morning. But I don't have it as some people might think, well, from 5 till 7 a.m, everything's in my morning routine. It's kind of natural. I'm doing it throughout the day, throughout the morning. You know, I'm getting up and going to the gym, and I don't think of it as this one big blocked out chunk of time, because that I found didn't work as well for me.
Well, Will, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And I actually, I listened to the audiobook of your book, and you touched on it before about the tasks that you have at every chapter, and I think that's really good because it actually stops you for a moment, think about it, actually action something, write it down. And I think that's a really good little tip in the book, because so often do you listen to it, you think, that sounds amazing, and then you just kind of go on about your business and you forget about some items. But the fact that you've put in that in there, I think that's a really good book. So I have recommended it. Even after the first chapter, I sent it to a friend of mine. I was like,
thank you.
You've just got to listen to this book. I was only
Thank you very
chapter
much.
1. So yeah, so it's brilliant. So it was a real privilege having you on as well. So thank you so much, Will.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, mate.